We got this story from Fox News. New York judge grants Trump request to file motion to dismiss charges, cancels sentencing indefinitely. This Trump spokesman labels ruling as a decisive win for the president-elect. Well, Trump's still going to have to come after New York because indefinite delay in sentencing means as soon as he's not president anymore, he's going to be a very old man, and they're going to say, "Time to go to prison, sir." So he better get that civil rights investigation. I hope Pan Bondi is up for these investigations.
I mean, I think it speaks to, again, the stuff that we were talking about earlier. The consensus is Donald Trump is not the devil, and that it's going to be okay if we have him as the president. And there was the discussion we had about on the other day about one of the things that the exit polls were saying, Donald Trump voters were saying, the threat to democracy. That's probably part of it, is the abuse of the Justice Department at multiple levels, state and federal levels. People are like, look, this is really bad for the country. And I've said this multiple times on the show in the past week. Americans don't trust the Justice Department anymore. They used to, but they don't anymore. Right. And that's because of things like the Daniel Penny trial, which, if you're plugged in, if you're in New York, I can't imagine you not being aware of it. Like in New York City, you have to be aware of that.
I would argue that probably most people in New York don't even realize what's happening to Daniel Penny.
You think so?
I mean, I'm just saying most people are just checked out. I mean, sorry to cut you off.
No, it's fine.
I just think most people probably don't even know. Like, if you went into somebody on the street and said, "Who is the vice president?" Not everybody would know it's Kamala Harris. Like, people are just checked out. But maybe in New York,
I'd say Joe Biden.
No, there was people that were like looking up. They said one of the top Google search results right before the election was, "Is Joe Biden still running?"
Yeah.
God.
That's what I'm saying. People are just disconnected. But you are right.
So
Everybody
you guys
should know about Daniel Penny.
Thank you for making the point that universal enfranchisement is a bad thing. Now, but my point being, if you're politically aware, you're definitely aware that, like, the Justice Department has been politicized at every level. If you're politically aware, you're aware that the government is essentially one party now. It's not like, I mean, 95% of DC voted for Kamala Harris, which is ridiculous, because these people are supposed to be in charge and they're supposed to be smart, and they're running for someone that is totally, or they're voting for someone that is totally and clearly inept, only because they're of the same party. So they're literally just voting for the machine to run the government. They weren't voting for Kamala Harris because Kamala Harris wasn't actually making decisions. They were voting for Anthony Blinken and people like him to continue to run state, and people that at the DOD to continue to run the DOD. I mean, that's most of the United States policy decisions are made between state, DOD, and CIA. You know, at least when it comes to international policy.
Or unelected bureaucrats. I mean,
well, I mean, that's what they are.
Federal rulemaking through the departments. I mean, the EPA is a great example of this. And one of the greatest things that's happened to this country recently was the overturning of Chevron deference, where federal bureaucrats do not get this sort of carte blanche agreement that their interpretation of legislation is correct. You actually have to prove that you were trying to make rules that abided with the language in the legislation. And so Congress has to be more specific with their legislative writing now to make sure that it's enacted correctly.
Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with, this is a bit of a change of topic. Are you familiar with the situation in the Senate trying to get the amendments back on to be able to amend laws that are brought up in the Senate and stuff?
No.
So there was one of the reasons why, or one of the things that was going down with the confirmation of Thune, was they were trying to get someone that would actually bring back the amendment process for bills that are brought up in Congress, because now everything in Congress is full bill, up or down. That's
straight
it.
to vote. Yeah, I hear.
It's completely and totally useless. You can't actually craft policy. It's everyone just tries to shove whatever they can into every bill.
And it's all consensus in the smoke-filled room.
Yeah, and so it's not actually, like, they're not representing their constituents. They're not representing their states. They're just saying this bill, everything is omnibus, and it's all just garbage getting.
Then you get idiots saying, well, you don't support such and such because you voted against this this bill.
Yeah, which
when there's
has like
50
a
other things in
bajillion-
it, right?
Is that where like a majority of the pork barrel spending comes from?
Well, I mean, to a degree, yeah, because I mean, it has to go from it has to be approved by the Senate and the House to get to the president. Yes, but the way that bills are crafted now, and I don't think that it's the same in the House, but in the Senate, everything was omnibus bills, and so you just throw whatever in there, and it always ended up just like she was saying, just like it's always used as a weapon against other people. Well, you voted for this bad thing, and it's like, yeah, well, there were 30 things in that bill because we can't make amendments.
The bipartisan border bill, which was a total scam
Yeah,
by
exactly.
McConnell and James
Perfect
Lankford, by
example.
the way, to throw Republicans under the bus on immigration ahead of the election. But that included a bunch of funding for Ukraine. So if you were, diametrically opposed to Ukraine funding and you would never vote for it no matter what the circumstances, even if you liked some of the things that were in the border part of the bill, that's a poison pill for you. You're not voting for that.
And then what it is like the media uses it against you because you vote against one thing very specifically, and they're like, well, this person voted for this, and then they plaster it all over headlines to make people look bad.
Exactly. And like she was saying, the border bill had all kinds of crap in it, but you heard multiple times on the campaign trail where Kamala Harris is like, oh, they voted against the comprehensive border bill, blah blah blah, and it's like it wasn't just this one bill; it was 1,700 different, not 1,700, I don't know what the actual number was, but it was umpteen different laws in there, and one of the things was going to be an amnesty program for all of the people in the United States currently, and the thing that Donald Trump is running on, and that's why Donald Trump said this is a bad bill, the thing that he was running on was deporting people. So the inability for the Senate to actually veto, lines or make amendments to say this we're taking out and stuff, that's taken all of the power away from the Senate. Like it really doesn't do its job anymore. And having that kind of policy back, having the ability to make those kind of changes and amendments is a big deal.
We need to repeal the 17th.
I completely agree.
Actually, no. What you need to do, Tim, is you need to apologize to Jussie Smollett for the lies that you said about him.
So let's repeal the 17th Amendment, which states that the senators are chosen by popular vote, and go back to your state legislatures deciding who's going to represent your state, which makes the most sense. And when we got off that system, it basically eliminated local politics and federalized everything. And now you get these commercials where a member of Congress goes, I'm going to clean up this district. Vote for me, and we're going to make these streets safer. And then they're like, I voted for you. And then they go to D.C. And you're like, oh, well, I thought you were going to have this district. You're like, yeah, from D.C. When I vote on federal spending for war budgets. And like, well, then who's going to clean up my town? Oh, that's your local rep, dude.
Well, or it's the opposite. And the local reps are now running on nationalized agendas where you have people being like, well, I'm running to stop Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And it's like,
that's not your job.
Yeah, like you represent Maryland 6. Why are you running against Joe Biden?
I think that to repeal the 17th would not only would it do the stuff that Tim's talking about, which I think is all good, but it would also take the argument away from the left that they constantly are making that, oh, it's not fair that South Dakota has 2 senators and California only has 2 senators when California has so many more people. It's a misdirection to it's a means to misdirect ignorant people, right? People that don't understand that senators are supposed to represent the interest of the whole state, and all of the states have the same rights about the way that the federal government operates. They have the same number of representatives because they have the same rights. It's not about the population. And so when people are like, well, it's not fair that South Dakota doesn't have more senators or it's not fair that South Dakota has the same amount of senators as California, it's a really, really dumb thing that they're saying. And it takes that all away, because then they would have to learn, oh, wait a minute, this isn't how it operates. You don't even vote for your senator. So it doesn't matter to you. And if you want to affect who your senator is, then you actually have to vote for your legislature in your state, which is actually would force people, if they want to be politically active, it forces them to pay more attention to what's going on in their local, in their state. And that's the way it's supposed to be. And that would be a good thing, because your state is far more likely to have an impact on your life, your state and locality, than the federal government.
Yeah, and one of the few places where that actually took place recently was obviously in Virginia, when people were really involved in local elections because of what was happening with school boards. And I think Republicans across the country are taking note of that and trying to run more on local issues. But that was sort of the roadmap, and why you got groups like Moms for Liberty coming out, 1776 Project PAC, trying to get people to run for school board and other local offices, because when they saw how it affected their kids, they realized just how important those local issues were.
Yeah, and with the pandemic, we learned that the local governments are incredibly important when it came to opening back up. So, yeah, we overlook how important it is, the local jurisdiction.
And everyone was blaming Trump for state-level restrictions and lockdowns. The libertarians were just angry with Trump, and I'm like, to be fair, Trump did go out and give that announcement 2 weeks slow the spread, but at a certain point, when people were upset about the lockdowns, he said this is a state-level thing, and the federal government can't intervene in this stuff.
Yeah, to blame President Trump is ridiculous. It wasn't his call, and it would be good to have the American people less ignorant about the way that our government works.
They also then used it against him when they said that he's his fault for the COVID response and tied that back to the economy when he wanted to keep the economy open, and they did not.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.